Speaker.
I call Jono Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with great pleasure that I rise to talk about the Social Assistance Portability to Cook Islands Niue and Tokelau Bill. As a relatively new MP, I was reflecting today that I think this is the first bill that actually has been, where I've been part of the first reading, the committee stages, the select committee, and seeing this through to the end. And it's a great privilege to be a part of that. Oh, well, look, no, it's just a great thing for me to be able to be a part of, great thing to be able to be a part of doing something that is actually very positive. Of course, everything this government does is positive, and this is just another one of those things. But it is just, I think for me, something where we can really look and say this is something positive we are doing for the people of the Cook Islands, Tokelau and Niue. And I think the last speaker summed it up when she reflected on the very positive response that we had in a large part from the submitters from those islands, who talked about the fact that they were very grateful for what is going on here and what is happening. Because what we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is ensuring, and I think this is the particularly important part of this, that people no longer have to be resident in New Zealand at the time at which they apply for their their superannuation to be able to be transferred to them if they were living in any parts of these realm islands. And I think it's a critical thing, because people do sometimes want to go back a little earlier than the age of 65 to retire, and so it's great that they can do that. I think what is critical about this, though, Mr. Speaker, is that it actually gives people who are from those places the same rights that are afforded to the rest of New Zealanders who are living here. In that, Mr. Speaker, I'm 48 years old now. If sometime I decide that I want to move to the Cook Islands or Niue or Tokelau and I want to stay there when I retire, I'm going to have to spend 5 years after the age of 50 in New Zealand. And yet what's been proposed by the SOP that's come from the other side of the House is to give people who are from these islands something that other New Zealanders aren't eligible for. And that's not necessarily fair. So what we've done, Mr. Speaker, in putting this legislation forward, despite the fact that a member over the other side thought that a lot of consideration hadn't gone into this, a huge amount of consideration has gone into this to ensure that people can go back before the age of 65. They can receive superannuation in exactly the same way as other New Zealanders can, and I think that is absolutely critical. Now, one of the points that was made from the other side of the House was just bizarre, and I just want to pick up on it, because it was stated that almost all of the submissions were for changing this. And I thought, you know what, if this government, if any government, to be honest, said every time submissions came to select committee, the people who came to our submissions asked for this, so therefore we should give it to them, well, the government would go broke so quickly, it's unbelievable. So, yes, we do need to listen to submissions, but we need to weigh them up against the reality of the situation. Yes, we will get submissions on bills, but actually yes, we will get, submissions on bills, but we do need to be sure that we weigh those up against the reality of the situation. And so, Mr. Speaker, we listened to those people, we've responded to those people, but it doesn't mean that we always have to do just what somebody wants every time they ask. Now, Mr. Speaker, these islands are facing some real issues. They are facing issues of depopulation. They're facing some challenges. And as a nation of New Zealand is offering protection and to those other islands in the realm, it is our responsibility to do what we can in an appropriate way to assist them. And that is exactly what we are doing through this legislation. Through this legislation, we are ensuring that it will be much easier for people to go back, to be able to retire, perhaps somewhere along the line a little bit earlier than they might have before, and make some useful contribution back home in those islands. I've heard from the other House that they've used the word mean. They've used the word mean. They've said that this government is mean because we're not changing the things. Mean-spirited even was the word that I've heard. And it's absolutely bizarre because what we're talking about doing today, Mr. Speaker, is offering something that has not been offered before. Something that up until now has been missing, that through successive governments of New Zealand, I don't want to lay blame, but hasn't been addressed until now. And we are addressing it. We're doing it so that it's in line with the kinds of, so that the people of those islands are being treated in the same way as any other New Zealander in terms of if they wanted to retire there, and I think that is critical in what we're doing. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to finish up by saying we are committed to these islands of the realm. We do take it very seriously. We do acknowledge the special place that they do have. But we do need to make sure that what we do is fair, it is equitable, it is in line with everything else that we're doing, and that's exactly what this bill does. This bill ensures that we are working in a way that is most appropriate to meet the needs of those islands and also keep in mind what is fair and equitable for other New Zealanders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.